can we spend a few minutes talking about the psychology of the quote unquote culture war right now that is transpiring on social media, at least, and spilling out into the world with real life consequences? It does feel, I spent a lot of time thinking about this, and I find myself fascinated and captivated by the sort of ecosystem of secular gurus online right now. And how that plays into the root causes of what is currently dividing us, how we can heal as a nation, and trying to understand it better. And I'm concerned about the incentives that are at play online and this appeal of heterodox thinking and thinkers that appear to dominate certain issues, and which a lot of people find very powerless to resist. So whether it's politics or health, nutrition, vaccines, there seems to be this allure, like a tractor beam, to this manner of issue dissection that lures, for better or worse, many people into thought bubbles that become calcified. And I'm not necessarily interested in parsing the validity of various ideas, but I'm more interested in the kind of psychological drivers behind all of this and the binary nature of all of it, because it seems to be breeding a level of acrimony that is extremely unhealthy. And even yourself, who's so studied in all of this, find yourself getting into spats with people online. And I know
increasingly,
because I follow you on Twitter and I see the engagements that you have, and I know that you're very aware of kind of the dynamics that are playing out right now.
I am very aware, and what's crazy is I'm getting in spats with my friends, like my colleagues, people I've long known and published with. They've gotten a really big presence, and I'll disagree with something, and then now it all of a sudden becomes a war. It's like, what? Like, why is disagreement a war all of a sudden? And a big part of it is in-group disagreeing. If you just disagree a little bit or you critique something from your in-group, you come across as disloyal to your in-group, which I don't view it that way at all. It's like, we're just having a conversation. I mean, do you think you're perfect? Like, I don't think I'm perfect. Like, feel free to criticize something I do, but there's such an us versus them mentality that is driving this. Psychologically, of course, tribalism is nothing new, right? It's not in the human species. It's deeply ingrained, and you can explain it evolutionarily. When you go all the way back, in small bands, we had to have a very tribal mindset to survive, right? But that same tribal mindset to survive it's not necessary to what's the word that's used a lot now? Destroyed. Ben Shapiro destroys the libs. Destroyed. Right. Everyone's trying to destroy each other, but we're not trying to learn from each other.
To tie it back to Maslow, I feel like identification with certain groups online has almost superseded the importance of our connection to groups in the analog world, right? So the messaging that occurs on places like Twitter is all about placement or kind of where you sit with respect to your identification with a certain group, which makes the whole thing very treacherous, right? And I think drives that binary nature of it. Like, are you a member of this group or are you not? And before you say that, you better think about how this might reflect upon whether you're, a member in good standing of community X.
That's right. The system is the incentive structure, everything is so guided towards taking a side and being transparently in a particular identity or a particular ideology that people like me, and there are others out there, I don't think I'm the only one, but we're trying so hard to be integrative and nuanced, and there's no reward structure for that right now.
No. Well, first of all, you need a 20 tweet thread to even begin to broach any kind of nuanced take on anything. And the incentive structures are such that it doesn't reward that. It rewards the hot take, tweet that's going to travel, the outrageous perspective and the clickbait title.
That's right.
And it's all being driven by audience capture, which further calcifies these respective camps and drives us apart. And psychologically, like, this is not good for us. It's not good for humanity.
No.
And it's causing some pretty severe real world problems. And there are good actors, but there's a lot of bad actors out there right now, smart people that I think are behaving incredibly irresponsibly.
I agree. I absolutely agree. The big one right now that makes my head explode is the woke anti-woke cultural war.
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't know if you wanted me to name something in
like
particular,
wokeism caused Putin to invade Ukraine. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, but then there's this whole anti-woke crowd and the thing is, they make some legitimate criticisms, but legitimate criticisms, it shouldn't be like. I think there's a healthy, again, I'm going to just be on brand here because I'm talking about healthy versus unhealthy motivations. I wish there was more healthy criticism in a way that caused groups to talk to each other, right? Like, I think there's a lot of, on the so-called woke side, there's a lot of people who feel in their lives, they are experiencing a lot of racial discrimination, right? Like, see it from their perspective, like their own personal life, they are experiencing day in and day out a lot of discrimination that is really dehumanizing and inhibiting their own self-actualization. You have people on the other side, they're like, why are those people always complaining about race? I don't see race at all. I'm race blind. Why can't they just shut up about race all the time? Why does everything have to be about race? Okay, look, maybe there's some valid critique on this side that, like, okay, we shouldn't view everything through the lens of race. But there should also be a compassion and an extending of graciousness to at least acknowledge that, yes, while your whole personal life doesn't surround around race, that race doesn't play a big issue in your own life, there are people in their lives for which race does, their race does play a role in how people treat them in their own daily lives. So I would like to see more an extending of graciousness on both sides. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, compassion, empathy, like basic,
but in a way that like allows them to talk. Because right now there are people that are just not talking to each other whatsoever, right? And there are like some valid critiques on all sides. I mean, it seems mind-boggling to think, could we ever get people together to actually just listen to each other on both of these sides of the cultural war? I should be like, like, okay, well, fair enough, but I'm just going to give you this little critique here. And then for the other person to be like, you're right, maybe I have been a little too race obsessed because I haven't thought about your point of view. The other person says, you know what, actually, I can see how, because I'm white, I actually don't have any of these issues that you actually legitimately probably do have. That's a fair point. But the thing is, there's not just a mature...
I'm not very sanguine that can transpire.
Well, that just be a mature way of
I know,
talking.
It seems super basic, but the way you describe it feels like it's a South Park episode.
Yeah, I know.
That would never
happen.
Parody.
It'd be a parody.
Know, right?